Hello, beautiful. How are you? And how are you taking care of yourself today? And welcome to another Joyfully After conversation with yours truly, Heidi Esther. I'm a storyteller and joy coach. I walk alongside women and those who are selflessly dedicated to our families and our pets and our spouses and our communities to break out of those defeating emotional and thought loops, right? Those ones we get caught in over and over so that we can create joy on our own terms. Hallelujah. So, how can I do this? I've been there in the trenches doing and being for everybody else but me. And I walked through a dozen years of loss, grief, growth, and healing and discovered what joy meant for me. So I'm a professional relationship builder, veteran storyteller, and mama. And I am creating a neighborhood here, a joyfully ever after neighborhood, where we can sit down and peel back the layers and roles that no longer serve us so we can authentically connect and welcome in joy. Or I guess you can kind of think of me if Captain Marvel and Mr. Rogers had a baby who loved baking chocolate chip cookies. I love baking myself some cookies. All right. So today I am so excited and thrilled and full of all sorts of warm, sparkly fun for our Joyfully Ever After conversation. So before I bring my guests on, okay, what is a Joyfully Ever After conversation? These are the journeys to joy that I talk with other empowering souls so that you can see that you are not alone and it's you can totally put your happiness first and kind of see what it is like in other people's shoes. All right, let's bring on our absolutely special guest today, Miss Holly Melby.
Hey, Heidi.
Yay, hey Holly. How's it
Hey,
going?
things good. I'm happy to
Good.
be here with you.
Yes, yes. This is lovely. So, in the Joyfully Ever After community, if you're catching here us live, anyone can feel free to share a comment. And in the replay, please feel free to put your comments for both Holly and myself in the chat, and we will get back to you as soon as we can. All right, so I am going to introduce this fabulous woman, and we're going to get started. So, this is what I know about Holly. She is a courageous and fun loving soul with many dreams and aspirations about how she can help the world. And they are all right on her heart and on her sleeve. They're all right there. She is a blogger, author, mama. That's what she said, alumna. And she is on a mission to help empower other women.
Yes.
Yay!
Ooh, thanks for that sweet introduction.
You're welcome. So tell us a little bit more about you.
A little bit more about me. So, I am a wife to my amazing husband of 24 years. We're super close to 25.
Yeah, that's
So
like a big one. You can go around the
yeah,
world on the
ex-
25th, right?
exactly. I'm
Yeah.
like, this is my plan. I'm like, we should go. We should. What can you get one of those tickets around the world or something like that?
Yeah, and then part of it's a hot air balloon, maybe in the nice calm.
Now you're
Like,
speaking my language. Yes.
yeah, that's what I'm
Yes.
talking about.
So we celebrate 25 in September. We have
Mm.
3 kids together. They are 14, 13, and 8. I have to like stop to think about it because the other day, literally, I think this was 2 days ago, my daughter said something about, she said, well, when I was 7, and I was like, you are 7. And she's like, no, I'm not. And I'm like, yes, you are. Cause I thought she was doing the I'm 7 3/4 thing.
I'm 7 and
So I'm
11.
like, you're 7, and she's like, No, I'm not." And we did this back and forth. "Yes, you are." "No, I'm not." "Yes, you are." We did this back and forth for a minute, and she was like, "Mom, are you serious?" And I'm like, "What?" She's like, "I'm 8. I'm gonna be 9 soon." And I'm like, doing the calculations in my head, like, I'm like, shoot. I'm like, why do I think she's 7?
Oh, see, that's much better. The other day, I was like, my kids are 13 and 15. No, I was off by like years. You're
Yes. I'm like, I can't, how am I supposed to keep up? You're number 3. I don't know anymore. So anyway, 14, 13, and 8
all
is,
right. That's
is
that's
I
great.
think the
That's great.
accurate numbers.
And that is a whole lot of busy without any children to help you drive around. I have one that just got a license, and I tell you, it's a game changer.
Yes, hopefully you mean that in a good way. Like it's a good
Yeah.
game changer. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, it's not like there is the break-in period of the freaking out, stalking your kid on 360, like, what's their top speed? Did they roll through that stop sign? Like, when are they gonna get home? I really need to get to sleep, but I'm really worried. And, after I think about, like, 4 or 5 times of that, like, I've kinda settled into maybe, like, one little text, like, "When can I expect you home?"
Okay.
Reminder of curfew.
Nice.
Yeah,
I like
yeah,
this.
yeah. So it's kind of like, it's not just like all of a sudden you're like, "Freedom!" Also, it doesn't work, unfortunately like that.
No, but 4 or 5 times does not sound bad to me. That's very encouraging actually,
Yeah, yeah, it's not
because
months, it's not months.
we'll have a driver in, less than a month. You know, she won't have her
Mhm.
license yet, but she will be behind the wheel, and this idea is, like, a little bit mind-blowing to me, where I'm like, "What it this crossing over to your child driving you around is like, how do parents do this? I don't understand." I will do it, and hopefully I'll be super gracious about it and a kind, patient teacher, but, it's bizarre to me. So, this is where we're gonna be in the next couple weeks, and
Yes, and it was, like, the only time I wish I'd had a car that had that brake on, like, the passenger side. I
yes.
was like, because it was only my second time, my son was like, "All right, I just wanna drive down the, like, Kirby," which is, kind of a busy street.
Mhm.
And then we almost hit, like, because he's a cautious kid. He's like the worst case scenario kid. So always looking around him. But he's so cautious that he was almost like hitting all the mailboxes on the side of the road. And I was just like, oh my God, like we're so in the gutter. Like we're gonna go down the drain.
Yes.
And so yeah, so I just like, oh, oh. And then my son can always tell, like, because he's very perceptive, like when my hand slowly reaches up for the oh shit handle, like, he's like, "Mom, it's okay." And I'm just like, "Okay, pull it down." And then I just kinda, like, stretch, like, "Oh," and then I just kinda put my hand on the ocean.
He's like,
Sometimes it's like,
I've got this. I've
yeah,
got
he's
this."
like, "Mom, I got this." And it's such a vote of encouragement when your son's, like, being the parent, like, "Mom, it's gonna be okay, and I'm gonna slow down, and I see there's those guys in front of me, and one of them's erratic, and there's one behind me is finally going around me, and he's no longer tailgating me, so I feel better." And so it's just, like, getting kids to, like, just kinda explain what their thought process is really
Mm.
brings the
I
blood
like that.
pressure down.
Yeah. If they could just narrate for us
Yeah. That's actually
while they hold our lives in their hands, right?
yes, yes, and that's what they tell you to do, like, that's how they teach the kids now is, yeah,
I
they
like
say,
that.
like, you gotta just, like, do stream of consciousness out there.
I
And so
like
my
that.
son hated doing it, but he would do it so that, yeah, his mom
Just to make
might
you
not
feel
have a
better.
heart attack. Yeah, so that
Yeah.
was good.
That's
So
generous.
yeah.
So, yeah, I feel like I remember this stage when I was driving, and I remember it being a little bit difficult for my mom, but I just feel like she was so much cooler about it than I am. Like,
Mm.
I'll be cool. I'll be cool, right? I'm like, I will be
We all
cool,
got
but
like, there's 2
we're
choices at home, right? Like,
weird.
most kids have 2 choices at home. It's like, "Alright, what parent is not gonna be, like, crazy?"
Right. Yeah.
And so I look back and I think of, like, "Huh, I never practiced driving with my mom.
Oh,
Hmm,
interesting. Yeah,
maybe
well,
that meant something."
I mean, of the 2 of us, I would say that my husband will be the, more patient, gentler teacher. So, I wouldn't blame my kids if they drove with him more. I
Yeah,
think
and you can
I tend
incentivize
to
it.
expect perfection, like, immediately, right? I'm like, You're on the road, like, you should know exactly what you're doing all the time." And I think he'll be a little bit more calm about it, so I wouldn't
Yeah.
blame him. I wouldn't hold that against them. We'll
Yeah,
see what
yeah,
happens.
and if he ends up doing maybe the majority of the lessons, like, I will say that my son went out once with my wife and maybe about 100 times with me.
Okay.
It was the
Okay.
one it was fun. So they're I shouldn't like but I always end up bringing up the Enneagram. So my wife is a 1, which is a perfectionist, and my son is a 6, which is like trying to please and trying to get everything right and being nervous about everything. And so as a 2, I'm much more calming force. And so they're like oil and water, and my son and I are just kind of like water and water, I guess.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense. The 2 like you said, the 2 wants to help.
Yeah.
The 1 expects perfection,
Yeah, the one
what I
expects
just
him to
said
have everything memorized and make all the right decisions right away.
right now.
And so that
Yes.
can be a little bit challenging. So
Right. There's
anyway, let's get started. So
yeah.
we're gonna go how I want to bring this back into the Holly land here. And how are you and how are you taking care of yourself today?
Mm. I am I am doing great today. But I think what actually I love about that question is that how are you taking care of yourself today might look
Yeah,
very
like
different than
today.
yesterday. You know what I
Yes.
mean? And
Yeah,
and that,
yes.
and that that's okay because yesterday I took a nap for a very long time, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I feel like today I'm a little bit more like I'm going to choose to be productive and um, pour into myself in a totally different way, right? Well, I'm gonna
Ooh.
do Pilates and I'm going to drink the lemon water and do that. You know what I mean? Like I'm going to do some of these more action based things to take
Ah,
care of myself, movement
yes.
types of things. So I think I love sharing that message that every day, every moment might look a little bit different, and how you care for yourself might look different from day to day, from moment to moment. And
Amen.
and that there's freedom in that, right? Taking care of
Mhm.
yourself might look like eating some sugar, you know,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
another day you're like, this actually wouldn't really serve my body, and I'm gonna drink the celery juice instead, or whatever.
Yeah.
That type of thing. So today feels like intentionality behind how I move, how I think, who I talk to, what I
Mm.
consume media wise. And that is how I'm taking care of myself today.
Oh, that's fabulous. I love that message of it's okay to continually give ourselves permission for the answer to be different.
Yes, yes. Grace is a wonderful thing, right?
Mhm. Mhm. Yes, I feel like I do wanna say I live in the nap zone, like, I love naps. Naps is, like, one of
Yes.
my things. I have a lot
Mm,
I process I have a lot of feelings, and I learned that, like, feelings take a lot of energy out of me, and so, like, that's one of the ways, like, I take either long meditations or sometimes they turn to naps.
mhm,
So, um, yeah, and so it's just like if I can't and then it gets to this question, like, if we can't choose to take care of ourselves in the way we need to take care of ourselves, like, what good are we? Then we're just we're latching onto all these other things to try to fill that gap that will never get filled in the way it needs to because it has to come from us.
sure. Yeah. And there's something so different about powering through, right? Versus actually moving forward with energy versus like I got to do this and I'm just going to power through it. There's a
Mhm.
totally different feel to life in general when you're moving forward because you've created energy in order to move forward with.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, you're being internally you can internally, like, create it and use that internal kinda push
Mhm.
versus being feeling like you're just being pulled around and, like, whipped
Yes.
around in the wind and, like, "Oh, I have to do this for them, and I have to do this for that," and, like, whatever, and so, yeah, so by creating our own energy, which I think is like always more. So when I take care of myself, I always have more energy than when I'm just like, I'm just gonna drink a Diet Coke and
Yep.
like, maybe take my dogs for a walk, which like I love dogs, but taking care of dogs is a drain for me. Like everyone's got their own thing, right? So dogs fill me up in some ways, but they really like there's a lot of care that goes into dogs. They're kind of like little people. And so I'm like, I acknowledge that I love them and they're also draining. So they're in my like non self care bucket. some people they are in the self-care bucket, and that's
You're
great.
caring for them. Yep.
Yes, yes, I'm like caretaker, so every day I'm like, "All right, the dogs need to have exercise and, like, get their food out and all this, they make sure they have cuddles and we have contact time and all this stuff." But anyway,
Mhm.
yes, I think that's so important to get that and I'm gonna be talking in, like, a week or so at a local retreat about just, like, and I feel like the main root of all these issues of why we don't give ourselves permission is because we have this worth, this low worth. And so then we just decide like everybody else's needs and all the other things are more important. So then we end up powering through. We end up letting things pull ourselves, and then we end up trying to latch on to other people to make us feel better when we could have just filled our own cup.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, and I love that word worth. I think for
Mm,
me personally, and I happen to think a lot of women too struggle with this idea of self-worth, right? And wherever this came from, whether this is Freudian, whether it's self-induced thinking that we're not worthy of X, Y, and Z, but self-care, I think, is one of those a huge thing that women tend to put on the back burner because we don't believe that we're worth that. Or even put in a different way is that someone else is worth our time more than we are.
right. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah,
It's
so
just
it
so
can,
huge. Like we're made to be the creators of other life and therefore the caretakers of other life and therefore the other lives are more worthy. But
yeah,
so many people say like, "Oh, what's the whole oxygen mask thing?" And then I used to kind of laugh at that, like, "Oh, us women, we moms, we got to put on our oxygen mask first, and then we get our kids." But it's just like, in real life, how many of us are just putting the oxygen masks on the kids
right.
first,
Yeah.
right? But
And
yeah.
it feels, and my youngest is 8. So I am a little bit removed from that young, that toddler stage,
Mhm.
which everybody I think is a little bit different in which stage is their favorite or which stage is more challenging. But for a lot of people, it seems to me the young stages can tend to be the most challenging. And I certainly remember it like that. And I think a lot of the reason is that there isn't a lot of breathing room at that stage. You
Mm.
you literally are going from one task to the next. You're going from changing the diapers to making the snacks to cleaning up the snacks to cleaning up the room to
Yeah.
organizing childcare or never getting childcare. I mean, it just feels like it's one after the other, where I happen to be in a really beautiful stage where I have 14, 13, and 8. Everybody's self-sufficient. Everyone can entertain themselves without me needing to be right in the room. I'm not concerned about safety as much, that type of thing. And
Mhm.
so there's just a little bit more breathing room of I can step away and take a bath, cook, read a book, whatever the thing is that
Mhm.
will fill me in the moment. And I'm not putting anyone in danger by stepping away. I'm not, that type of thing.
Yeah.
And so I'm very fortunate, I think, at this particular stage to be able to do that without having to find childcare in order to do
Mhm.
that. But at that time, that was tough. And so putting the oxygen mask on first didn't always seem possible.
Yeah, and that's another thing. It's just like and I, and I do this exercise and I had another phrase for it, but I call it like "Oh, I could never." That's what I call it. And,
Mm,
so we all have these expectations that we just constantly accrue these expectations, like these mom expectations and like being a woman expectations and then there's like working mom expectations. Like I think we're all working moms actually, whether or not we get like paid is like a whole other ball game.
different.
So we're all working moms. Um so whether or not we like go outside, we have a paid job or stay at home mom job. Um, so we all gather all these expectations constantly, constantly, and then we just start to like put them on as ours, like without thinking about it. And so a lot of at least in my new world of entrepreneur land, I've had to constantly do this thing called question the premise. Like,
Mm,
do I have to, continue making dinner every night, for my family? Do I have to? And so now I make like one big dinner and we have it over 2 nights, right? So I just kinda like I like so I've had to like go and uproot all of these expectations. Like, do I
Mhm.
have to go to all my son's soccer games and some of them get off at like, I don't know, end at like 10 and I'm just like dead the next day, right? Waste my whole next day. Do I have to do that? Or could I give myself grace, right? We're talking about grace. Talk
Mhm.
to and say like, all right, Jonathan, I'm gonna come to 3 of your games. Which games you want me there at?
Mhm.
And so it's like pulling back that veil to say like, all right, let's challenge our premise and then labeling that because I have oh, I could never. I use that because it's just like so I can label that voice in my head that it wants me to do like, all of the fresh hot meals every night and all of the going to the games and and all of the PTA things and and then until like there's like 30 minutes left for me, right? If I'm lucky.
If
Not
you're
even a
lucky.
bath. I can't even take a bath in that time.
If you're
Yeah.
lucky and if you're able to stay awake for that,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah, it's like pass out time.
Yes, for sure.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I want to move on to a segment I call Mama Said. So right now, you recently, I guess I jumped. You recently released a book, and you're kind of in a new phase of your life. You're stepping into a new phase. So I want you to kind of walk us through, like, how did you get to the place where you are out, sharing your story and sharing your message? And were there any kind of obstacles you had to overcome to be able to share it?
Yes, and what's interesting is in some ways, it's like we've overcome obstacles. We overcome obstacles in our life, and we're like, "Been there, done that.
Mhm.
I'm here." And sometimes I feel like there are obstacles maybe I'm just always gonna be dealing with,
Mhm.
or maybe they're new obstacles kind of thing. But so what I'm talking about when I say that is there's an imposter syndrome um, issue that I had to deal with early on in deciding that I want to write and then going, but who no one's asking me to write, no one's telling me I should do this necessarily. Am I actually a writer? But I didn't go to college for that. I studied something else. So and I haven't published anything. So there was some imposter syndrome issues, thoughts, thinking there that I needed to overcome that I'm still really overcoming. So it's not even
Mhm.
that I've arrived now. And so that's one of them. But I think early on, one of the biggest issues I had was simply going, I don't know what I'm doing because I didn't get an education in, journalism or creative writing. So I don't know what, and then I don't know what I'm doing as far as the publishing world, which can
That's a
tend to
big
be
world. Yeah.
it's a big world. I was gonna say it
Mhm.
can tend to be overwhelming, and I'm like, "Well, it just is overwhelming. It is what it is."
Mhm.
It can be a very overwhelming thing to step through that door of wanting to be published and having no clue even where to start.
Mhm.
And so that was like, okay, so what's step number 1? If I don't have an agent or a publisher saying, okay, here's what we're going to do. We've done this a million times. We know exactly how to do this. There's a formula for it, and here's what it
Mhm.
is. I didn't have someone saying that. So it's just kind of figuring things out on your own. Okay, so we need to launch a website and I need to post on social media, but I don't even know how to use Instagram or Twitter or
Mhm.
whatever the platform is that I'm choosing to tackle.
So here's a question. So every day there'd be like something new, right? There's
Yeah.
so many different and I can tell this from experience of publishing a book. There's so many different like
Hoops to jump through.
creatures you gotta encounter and like hoops to jump through and all this stuff. So how did you because I wanna also share with you about how I had to deal with that very real phenomenon of imposter syndrome. Um, like how did you meet that every day, right? That that feeling like, you have these voices in your head, right?
Mhm.
You have "Oh, I could never publish a book because I don't have, like, 8,000 degrees," or whatever.
Yeah.
And, like, just so how did you work with yourself? Like, how did you take like, was there, like, a self-care? regime you did you just kind of say like, all right, I'm just going to take steps? Like what, how did you move forward? You are a published author.
I moved forward and those are great questions where you're asking the question. I'm going, oh, that's a really good idea, huh? Right. So I'm like, I don't know that I had a system or systems in place. I think it very organically happened where I somehow pulled from some energy source
Mhm.
and
Did you have
moved
people
forward
cheering
with
for
it.
you? Did you have, like,
Absolutely.
support? Okay, so that's huge.
Absolutely. So that would be the first thing that I would have said is having people, and I think I was able to identify kind of who, and still am, identify who really believes in me, right? Like who is going to
Mm.
really pour into me in those moments when I'm like, I don't know. I don't know that I should keep moving forward. I don't, maybe I should give up. The people that are like, the world needs to hear from you. Those people I can identify who they are.
Mhm.
And it's not just the people that are really good cheerleaders and really supportive. It's more than that, right? Because there's a lot of helpers in the world, but being a helper doesn't
Mhm.
necessarily mean that those are the people that are going to come under you and elevate you and
Yeah.
remind you, who you actually are.
Yeah, those are, like, these are people who are, like, they have that unconditional love because they can see your light.
Yes. So it sometimes can take you by surprise because the people that you might expect that to be, where you're like, well, obviously that's going to be my best friends because they know me the most, and those are going to be the people that are going to be the most supportive and
Mhm.
believe in this thing. And that isn't necessarily the case. And that doesn't mean that they don't support you. That's not what I'm saying.
Mhm.
But it- you're they might not be the people that are helping to drive you toward your dream. And I think that surprised me a little bit, and probably that surprises most people where you're like, oh, I thought that this would be my best friend.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, or, like, this role has to be my spouse. It doesn't.
right.
It doesn't,
Yes.
and so that's a whole other that was something that surprised me. I mean, my spouse is like a rock, like, a absolute rock, and I had other people
Right.
of support.
Yes. So I think that's an important thing is to recognize that those people even might change. That there might, even for your next project, maybe that's somebody you haven't even met yet. I happened to meet a woman somewhere along the way. I think probably when I was in the middle of a certain project, and and then she suddenly became one of the people that I talked to every day,
Wow.
and she was like a driving force behind lots of things that I did, and she still is today. But
Wow,
she
that
wasn't like a long-term somebody that I knew from years and years ago. Like, she kind of just happened to step into my life, and so I love that, almost like how things can synchronize to, life can just kind of become like that, where these
love
people kind of step in right at the right time.
Mhm.
And it's not even that they're filling a void exactly, it's that she was the exact, like, energy and had the right words to help propel me forward.
Yeah,
So,
I love that.
people for sure. Yeah, that was a big thing too.
Yeah, and, in my experience, when I first started into self-awareness, I was, like, a very isolated, perfectionistic stay-at-home mom. Like, I was just very
Mm,
I had, like, couple friends, but not friends who knew me, because I was trying to get everything right, do all the things, and we're fine here, even though I wasn't fine. But when things started melting down, that's when those people like appeared in my life.
mm,
So and now I have a course that um it's called the Steps of Support. So I found like three different people that brought different ways to support me in my life that I needed at that time to be able to accept myself and move forward that I
mhm,
didn't have before. So one was like an unconditional love and accept you in your hot mess because like I was used to just being fine and perfect on the outside. I was the helper. I wasn't the one getting
mhm.
helped, right?
And it's hard for the helpers to accept help usually.
Yeah, we got issues about that. Now I'm
Mhm.
fine, but yeah, I used to be the big Heisman stiff arm on all the help.
Yes.
I'm fine. Um, so I had a friend like that, and then I started going to pastoral care, And so, like, my pastor was like, "Well, have you thought about things this way or that way or this way? Or what if God just loved you as you were?" And like all these questions, right? That just kind of like threw me out and be like, I never thought about that. Oh, I never
Mhm.
thought about that. Oh. And so I call that person like the sleuth, because I was like, oh wow, they really like opening up. They open up like different ideas. And then there was the person I met that ended up becoming my wife. I call that the joy opener. So someone who can help you walk through that door, that super scary door to like, I'm pretty sure this is gonna be fabulous, but I'm terrified. Ah.
Mhm.
Right. And so cultivating these they're all authentic, right? Because if we don't show up,
Yeah.
then we don't get the universe can't send us the help. Then it gets confused and is like, no, we thought you wanted an NFL watching buddy. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, and I love that oftentimes it's not people, it's not necessarily people that are exactly like you either, you know?
Mhm.
So, like, that's in my experience, it's been, do we necessarily vote the same? No. Do we dress the same? Do we run in the same circle of friends? Not necessarily, you know? So, I think we tend to think in this world where, it's all your church friends, or it's all your work friends, or it's all, very
Mhm.
compartmentalized. And there's something beautiful that happens then when it's this person gets to pour into you and this person pours into you and opens up exactly what you said. These different ways of thinking about things is actually what opens up, like, oh, there's clarity that comes from the different approaches, different perspectives. And I love that. And I think I just listed off several people to my husband. We are talking about this within the last couple of weeks about, I don't know that I actually called them like my biggest cheerleaders, but I think I was describing, these are a handful of people that if I needed to call someone and be like, I'm having a day, I'm feeling some
Mhm.
feelings, I'm struggling, I need you to just pour into me. These are some people that I know would be like, look, here's where we are. Here's who you are. And there's something
Mm.
so powerful about even having this. You could literally have a list of people, right? Like a tangible list that you keep on your phone of,
Yes.
these are the people who I know will pour into my soul. And now, in saying that, I want to be clear that I'm not saying that other people's opinion of you is more important than your own.
Correct.
I'm saying sometimes that we need people to come alongside us and remind us of that our voice matters, that our
Mm.
work matters, that our message matters, when we're like, I don't even know. I'm calling it quits because
Yeah.
who cares? I'm nobody. Right? It's back to that worthiness issue,
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
having those people who know you, love you, support you, and know that the world's a better place because of you, and are willing to pour back into you when you feel empty, those people are
Amen.
golden.
Yes, yes, and I do wanna like the loving mirror friends, right? Those that have, and I've been very blessed to meet more and more women who are like loving. I used to think of myself as a mirror, which is weird before I knew about the whole loving mirror concept. Because I love being able to, like, now when I have conversations with people, I can just sit and be with people to see them, and I take off any expectations or whatever, and just to be with another person, I think is like a divine experience, to have that, to be able to have that moment. Um, and yeah, just to have that loving mirror so that we can get reaffirmed and recentered, and restart our fire sometimes, right? The one match is just a little bit weak, and so we just need a couple other matches to be like, oh yes, there's the raging fire. There, let's
Yes.
let's do this.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Or you're like, "Oh, true, that's true. I forgot that. I forgot that that's actually really true." Like, set it on fire again. Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Rekindle.
let's get some more kindling in here, folks.
Exactly. I'm like, rekindle that flame, that
Yeah.
passion, that drive.
Mm,
Oh,
mm,
yeah,
amen.
that's huge.
Amen. So, I wanted to just kind of bring it back a little bit to, uh, because I've been thinking a lot about imposter syndrome lately, because I've been stepping in a lot of new waters, and as happens with me, I always think about stories, but it's actually not a story about imposter syndrome. It's a story about when I was afraid of heights.
Mm.
So I grew up in a very, very cautious family, and we didn't do a lot of risk-taking activities like going to amusement parks or like a couple times we visited my cousins in the Rocky Mountains, and it was kind of terrifying. And I remember being in cars loads, we're all just kind of holding our breath, and I'm like, "Are we gonna make it to my cousin's house, or we're just gonna die down this cliff?"
Mhm.
And, I had issues going on airplanes and all that kinda stuff. I ended up doing the airplane thing because I could pretend I was on land the whole time once we got up there. Um, and so I finally got to a point where I had an experience where I had to drive over a metal bridge, which is a see-through bridge, over a gorge in Yellowstone National Park.
Mhm.
And so I had to just keep focusing ahead of me and not down. And so that was how I got through that experience was like, I was like, damn it. Why didn't I give my wife the wheel for this part? I'm like, fine, I got to
Right.
do this. I just sweat like my palms. I was so sweaty and nervous, but I did it. Right. And then afterwards, like, it was really good, like, I felt really good, right, confronting it, but now sometimes I will actually walk up to the edge of, like, a bridge and be able and look down, where normally it would have crippled me and I would have only been able to maybe sit or not gone close, and I was thinking maybe this is parallel, so in that moment when I feel the back of my legs freaking out, I say, "I am safe and I choose where to put my feet."
Hmm. I
And
love
s
that.
and so I like my feet. I can choose whether or not 'cause, instead of going into all those fantasies of, like, "The wind is gonna gust and I'm gonna fling myself over the bridge, ah!" And then right, then I would have a meltdown. I'd be crying, I'd be sitting on the ground in the middle of a bridge, and people would be like, "Wow, she's got issues." Um, and so instead I stand with my feet and I say, I choose to put my feet here."
Yeah. Oh, man. I love that message because there's so much power in choice that
Mm,
I don't even think that we recognize that and use it and tap into that, right?
yeah.
So to even speak that out loud or even in your mind, but to speak it out loud, so powerful to recognize that I get to choose how I respond to this, how I feel about it, and what it means. Does a
Mhm.
bridge have to mean lack of safety or lack of
Right.
security, or can it mean something else?
Yeah, could it be a nice vista point?
Yeah. Yes. Could it be a great view?
Could could it
Could it
be
be exciting? Could it
Yeah.
be energizing?
Yes.
So
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah.
Eh,
So that's what I'm trying to for some reason I woke up and I was like, that's how I'm gonna try to work with imposter syndrome now. I'm just gonna swaddle myself in love and I'm gonna choose where to put my feet. And
mm,
if my feet are in these waters, I'm gonna choose to feel that I belong here and I'm gonna choose to move forward and
mhm.
not fling myself over the edge, which is quitting, I guess, in the,
Right, yeah. And it's I literally just came off a conversation with someone
Ugh,
about this message of I can't, which I can oftentimes run that programming in my head. I
mhm.
can't blink. I can't cross the bridge. I can't publish a book. I can't, whatever the thing is at the particular moment, I can't keep going. And she said, like, what if you switched that thinking to I can? And it might be
Mhm.
a different wording, not maybe it's not necessarily I can go over this bridge. Maybe that's the low hanging fruit that you just say the opposite of the thing that you say
Mhm.
you can't do. But it could simply be just tapping into what you can do in order to change could even change your physiology. If at that moment you step at the bridge and you're like, and now I'm sweating, and now my heart's racing, and now my hands are shaking. If you need to change your physiology, then what can you do? I don't know, stand in Superman pose for
Yeah.
or jump up and down, create energy behind the thing, whatever the thing is. Uh
Yes.
there's so much power in that
Yeah.
because I
I can choose to plant my feet here, and I
Mhm,
can choose to show up here as myself.
mhm,
Like, I can choose to feel like I belong because I belong wherever
yeah.
I go, right? It's like, as long as we're being ourselves, we belong.
Mhm.
right? It's hard. It's harder. I think it's definitely harder to belong when we try to be someone we're not. 'Cause
Yes.
then the approval that comes is a fake approval because it's for the outer shell approval, right? The one that we're showing.
Yep.
And so it's so much harder to feel that
Yeah.
belonging when we're not authentic.
Which I've been
Um,
guilty of for sure,
yeah,
that's
yeah. I lived a whole life of like, this is the face that I'm putting on today. Like,
mhm.
my dad, I remember growing up, and I love him dearly, and he's got so many wise words. He would always say, shields up, Heidi." And so it's always like, whatever mask you gotta put on, whatever buffer you gotta put on, like, do it, keep yourself safe, it'll be fine, right? And so it was always
Mm.
just like this putting stuff out in between me and the world.
Mhm.
And, and that, it serves its purpose, I guess, in, like, toxic environments and
Mhm.
stuff
Sure,
like that,
and
but
maybe serves temporarily.
yeah, temporarily, it can temporarily buffer us from, some outside attacks, but, yeah, but I've found that I've always felt strongest while being most authentic and vulnerable.
Mhm. So without the shield,
Yeah,
for me.
like, it's
Yeah,
like, "I'm just being me, here I
yeah,
come."
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and doesn't it feel the best too? Like, when you're
Yes.
in your own skin and, like, this is actually who I am?
Mhm.
Not that timid, scared,
Person hiding behind the
self.
shield.
Right,
Yeah,
person back
yeah,
there.
and it's like, "Ah, help me." Yeah, I mean, it's also helped my physiology, like, I show up more, like, I'm open, I'm no longer, like, hiding and, like, more timid, right? Just,
For sure.
activating my inner Captain Marvel, I
Yes,
guess.
I love that description with your cookies.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So we got a little bit of time left. So would you like to talk about your book? Would you like to talk a little bit about your That's What She Said experience? And like your message, that message? What would you like to talk about?
I would love to talk about both those things. Let's touch on the book first, and then
Okay.
if we have time, let's talk about That's What She Said.
Yes. Yes. So why this book? There's lots of books
Yeah.
that one can write. So tell us about the book.
So my book, Mama Said, is a children's picture book that I wrote based off of an essay, actually, that I had written for my mom as a gift for her 60th birthday. And
Mm.
it was entitled like 60 Things That I Love About My Mom. So it was her 60th birthday. So it was rather long. And I printed this thing off for her and presented it to her. And I read some of them at her birthday dinner. And what I decided to do years later, I want to say it was 4 years later, actually, after her 60th birthday, I then decided to take a handful of those messages out of the 60 and turn them into a picture book
Mm.
because there are so many messages that I learned from her, so many life lessons that I learned from her. And
Mm.
so this then became almost another, not almost, I literally launched it on her birthday. It was another birthday present for her, created from that first one. So I I basically went through the 60 and sort of chose what I felt was most, I guess, appropriate for a children's audience. But the interesting thing for me about working on that project was, even though it's a children's picture book, my primary audience in my head actually was the adults that would be reading this book to the children. So we're
Mm.
talking moms, dads, parents, teachers, babysitters, grandparents, uh, anyone who is actually going to be presenting the book to the child. I'm like, I want them to be getting that message just as much as the kids are. And so for me at the time, it was like, when I had younger kids, when I was reading books every single night, these are the types of books that I would gravitate to. I wanted the ones with messages, positive affirmations, and inspiration that I needed at the time, that would remind me of the kind of person I wanted to be, or the kind of person I was, but to remind me of those messages while I'm also teaching my kids that too. Those were more important to me than the cutesy, love Dr. Seuss, but like the rhymey kind of books
Mhm.
and stuff like that. I didn't tend to love those, and I did love these kind of short and sweet messages.
I love that. I
It
love
is.
that because think about it, when you're a busy mom of littles, you don't generally, well, at least I didn't. I had 0% 0 time of for reading
Mhm.
that wasn't related to reading the board books
Yeah,
or
yeah.
whatever, all the books. So, yeah, so that just, that's lovely
Mhm.
to get that message as in a wrap up
Yeah,
that
so
in
I
there. So that was, do you want to, do you have the book with you right now? I can grab mine.
I do I mean, I can
Okay,
grab
you
it,
wanna
I'll be just a second, but yeah,
okay,
I have it right here. Yes, yes, yes.
okay. You wanna pick okay.
Let's see how I can get
It's an
there.
adorable little
Reading.
little paperback with a
Yeah.
little
This is
mama
Mama Said, and I Sage, so it's written by me, illustrated by Sage Burks. I'm not an illustrator. I wish that I was, but I am not an artist. So I hired my niece actually to do all of the illustrations, and so she just did the loveliest job on the artwork. I'm trying to see if this will like pick it up,
I
and
love
it's
that.
just so cute and whimsical, fun and playful, and I love what she did. So that was fun to get to work with my niece on this project too.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
kind of
Um, so what is next for you in the women's inspiration
interestingly enough, you
area?
had talked earlier about
Mhm.
you touched on, I don't even know if you use this word or this description, but you touched on mom guilt. And
Mm,
this there's a women's personal growth book that I began writing long even before Mama Said. I began
mm,
writing this one years and years ago and have maybe half of it's written and lives on my computer. And that's a project that I feel, you know, really, I felt like then this needed to be out in the world. I
mhm,
wanted women to feel seen and heard and valued and feel their self worth. And truly, I wanted them to feel a little less crazy because when we're talking about M mom guilt can
mom
happen
guilt's
at any
huge.
age,
Yeah.
so I'm not saying that mom guilt isn't still there when you have adult children, but most of the stories in the book, at least at the time, were based on younger kids, and so I wanted what I really want in this out of this piece is for women to feel connected, not crazy, right? I want them to feel not so alone. Because I think it can be a really
Mm,
lonely place when you're dealing with
yes.
this feeling of I'm not good enough, and I'm a different kind of mom than I thought I was gonna be. I always imagined being like this and I'm failing, those types of thoughts.
Mhm.
I want women to feel just more validated in their thinking and their feeling, and then I want to empower them to give extend grace to themselves along with each other, where we're not judging each other from the sidelines based on what we do or don't do, so
Yes.
this is still a book that I'm really passionate about getting out into the world because I want to encourage people in that way. So
Mm, I
so
love that.
that's
It's
on the
so
horizon.
it's yeah, that's a big can of worms. That's like a gallon of worms right there, at least.
That's so true. It really is. Yes.
Mhm.
And it can be rather cathartic actually to go through the writing process on a personal growth book like that because I'm preaching to myself too, you know? I'm like,
Yeah, you're working through it.
I'm still
Working
learning
through it.
these things. So it's not like,
Yeah.
well, I figured this out and everyone should listen to me. I'm like, actually, I haven't quite figured it out, but I do have some wisdom there and I do have
Yes, it
some
makes you the
encouragement.
ideal person to write the book, especially because the universe is, like, giving you the energy and saying, like, "Let's do this."
Do this. Yeah.
Yeah. Fabulous. So, soon I will be up on stage, a stage that you were on last year. That's
Yes.
what she said.
It's coming up.
We got a few minutes left. Tell me about your experience of being in front of maybe like over 1,000 people and the message that you shared. I will put the links to the Mama Said book and Holly, your That's What She Said story also in the show notes.
Thank you.
So
My experience was amazing from, really from beginning to end. And my beginning kind of started long before just the show, just the cast met each other and everything, because I think I was supposed to be in the 2020 cast. Well, and then that got pushed back, and then 21, everything kept getting pushed back. So it ended up being February of 22 was eventually, just because of how everything went. And so my journey felt very long, actually, because
You had
of
a
all
long
of
time to
the
craft the
push
story.
it back, push it back. So by the time I met the cast, it would have been October of 21. So it's a really rather short period of time, as you've experienced too, where it's like just a few months of meeting with the cast and developing relationships with them. And there was something so, hmm, it almost therapeutic about my experience because of the message that I was sharing, which
Mm.
was about my dad and meeting it was about me standing on my dad's doorstep, knocking on my dad's door to introduce myself for the first time. So my story was about meeting my dad. And while I was writing the story and kind of developing my content for That's What She Said, my dad was literally admitted into the hospital the week that I met the cast for the first time. So
Wow.
in real time, in the behind the scenes, my dad was dying while I was going through this whole prep time. So my experience with That's What She Said was so therapeutic, because these women who were strangers in October were going through such a uh, deep and intimate and, I'm not going to say traumatic, because I don't think that death has to be a traumatic thing necessarily. And so it wasn't that it was traumatic, but it was such a vital part of my life and experience for me. And I was walking through it with these women who were strangers to begin with, and then became such close friends. Maybe they would have anyway, because
Mhm.
of the That's What She Said experience, but certainly because I'm standing in front of them each week sharing the story about meeting my dad, and also catching them up on, well, he got moved to a nursing home this week and now he's on
Mm.
hospice and da da da. So my experience was so unique, I feel like,
Mm.
because of everything that was happening in the background. And he did end up passing away a month before the show. And one of the fellow cast members was on call as the hospice nurse that night. And so
Oh, wow.
it was just this full circle kind of experience of having these women just be there physically or emotionally, mentally, and weekly, when we were meeting toward the
Mhm.
end, prepping for the show, they were there with me right along the way. And it was
Mm.
just beautiful. And I've been a longtime fan of the show. I've been a supporter of That's What She Said, and of the founders, and you know people who have been involved in the show that aren't even anymore. Um, I've been a fan for a long time, because I love it. It's so much more than a show, right? It's so much more than entertainment or
Yeah.
a girls' night out. It is, and let me correct myself. It's not a girls' night out. I would love to see more men in that audience for you guys too. I'm like,
Yeah.
men can hear women's stories. That's a good thing
Mhm.
to happen. So I don't wanna market this as a girls' night out. So that's why I'm like, let me correct myself. No, there should be
It's
50%
just
men in
yeah,
that
this
room.
is it's a meaningful night out.
It's a
It's
meaningful
a
night
real
out.
connective. Yeah.
And I love that it connects when it's like I said earlier, what regardless of how you love or vote or worship, regardless of that, like there's something that connects all of us when we share our stories.
Mm.
And it does none of those things matter, right? Because it matters because that's who we are, but it doesn't matter in a we can all be united regardless
Yes,
of
we
where we
all
are in the
have
spectrum.
yeah, we all have these underlying threads that
Mhm.
are of similar humanness and humanity and
Yeah.
struggle and grief and joy and healing. We all have these threads, and when we can put down the fact that some people are wearing polyester and some people are wearing cotton, we can all say like, "Hey, we all guess what? We're all wearing clothes." Well,
Yes.
most of the time anyway.
Most of the
So
time. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
so
just getting to that point, just, sharing our collective humanity together just makes us so much stronger, right? And then, oh my god, then maybe we can work together a little bit more on some things. That'd be lovely.
I would love
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Fancy a world that kinda operated on collective humanity. That'd be
Isn't that
lovely.
cool? Yeah, I
Oh my
love
gosh. Okay, so wait, I have this moment. I have this part of my show that I do. It's called the spotlight moment. So, Holly, talk to me about your peculiar genius. So, it's like what's your unique mix of talents and traits that make you uniquely qualified to empower women or do anything that you do?
Oh, you just dropped this, like, huge question, right? Unique traits. I feel like okay. The fact that we even say things is this is what's interesting about that. I think because everyone has such unique traits, but we don't necessarily recognize them as unique, we think because we have them, everybody has them,
Mhm.
right?
We normalize them or minimize them, right?
We
Like,
minimize
"Oh,
them.
because I do
We're
this
like,
doesn't everybody can do
yeah,
it,"
we're like, this
whatever.
isn't anything special.
Mhm.
Everybody can do this thing, and everybody thinks like this or has this skill, and it just isn't true. So, but because we think that, then it's almost hard to identify them. So one of the things that I've thought through that in light of this is that I'm a connector,
Mm.
and I tend to think that everyone is this, that everyone can do this, and that it's simple for everyone. And I'm recognizing that it's not simple for people. It is actually a very unique skill and gifting that I happen to have, and it's very easy for me. And I think because it's easy is why it seems like what it's no big deal. But that's like my superpower, that it's very easy. I love to connect people. And I don't mean
You're
like a
not a dating service.
I don't mean
We're
like a
not gonna
B&I group.
yeah,
Yes, right,
yeah.
yeah. I'm not making love matches here, though I probably could, but, it's not about that, and it's not about, business networking or something like that. It's about connecting people on a deeper level. So what you just said about that's what she said, on an
Mhm.
emotional, we all have similar stories. We all have commonalities. Even if the only things we tend to see are how we're different, we're actually very similar and very connected. And so I have this superpower of inviting, you know, I'm literally gathering like 7 different families, I think, to go on a trip coming up. And I just did
Oh,
this
wow, like a
this weekend.
giant family vacation.
Giant family vacation,
Okay.
spring break. And so that's happening. I just came off of a trip this past weekend where 5 families came together, and there's another trip. There's 6 couples going on a trip. So it's these are trips, but I'm talking in general. I can connect people, get
Mhm.
all the neighbors together, and we're going to go share a meal together, or we're going to come and have a dance party at my house, or that kind of thing. It's very easy for me to do that. And I recognize that that's not a skill that everyone
Mhm.
has or even wants,
Yeah,
you know? But
you gotta do planning with that, and you have to, be able to have that perspective to take everybody, a lot of
mhm,
different, um,
mhm.
ideas into consideration
Yes.
and, like, yeah, make all the accommodations and everything, and, yeah, you are kind of like, uh it sounds like on the outside and on the inside, you are, like, a meaningful, fun facilitator.
I like that. Facilitator. Yes.
'Cause you can just you pull everybody together and you're able to cultivate, like, this very rich yet light experience so people can dive in as deep or as shallow as they want, right?
Mhm.
And be able to, create that experience. So everybody's in the pool and some people get the deep end, some people have floaties and, some people are sunbathing and
Mhm.
everyone's having a great time at the pool party.
Yeah. Yes. I love that word, facilitation. Yes.
I love that. I love that. And also what I do know of you, Holly, is that you are a massive idea. generator. You
Mm,
have so much so many gifts of ideas for empowering women and being able to, kind of like you're starting to dig on the inside and being able to, share your experience to help connect with other women in that way also.
mm,
And so you have this superpower also of the ideas of
mm.
the
Thank you
lots of
for that. That's very generous. Those are very generous, kind, affirming words. I appreciate
mm,
that very much.
mm. Your ideas and your positive energy, and you got some force behind it also, so not just the fun, but you got a little bit of force to keep you moving forward in this meaningful, like, passionate direction. And
Mm.
so, you're fairly unstoppable.
Hmm.
You are a
Well,
fairly unstoppable force, and so you gotta learn, so it's like always that journey is like working with all of our pieces so that we all can move forward together and we don't, let those things like triggers like imposter syndrome, mom guilt really, pull us back, right? The universe, I always say, universe gives me lessons. What am I gonna learn today?
mhm.
Okay. Is
Yeah.
today gonna be
Take
like
it.
a
Yep.
yeah,
Bring it. Yes. Yeah,
crazy.
love it. I could say the same about you. I feel like there's a kindred spirit kind of thing where even in the room that we met, well, actually, I think that was probably the second time we met,
Yeah.
but I remember being, like, literally drawn to you in
Yeah, I
the
was like,
room
"Oh,
full of
man,
people.
she's got it so together, and she already has a show behind her." Holly, just for people's recognition, Holly came as the, um, representative of the former cast of That's What She Said to the first time that I met with my people, and so I remember I was
Mhm.
like, "Oh my gosh, she's so put together. Is that what I'm gonna look like at the end of this? Okay."
Oh, that's very sweet.
I was like, "She came with
It
all these
never
gifts."
feels like that though, I feel like, but
Yeah. Yeah,
but
you
yeah.
came in, you had just a boisterous, uh, powerful presence, and so you bring the fun, but you also bring the meaning. So you
Mm.
got both of those with you, and then you came with gifts, which was even more awesome. So I got, like, That's What She Said swag.
It's always good, yes.
It's always good to get
Yeah.
gifts and
Well,
stuff.
you have an amazing cast. I loved
Yes.
I
Yeah,
love
so
that
no
the people in
shortage
it.
of, like, if having moments where I plant my feet and say, "I belong. Okay, here we go. Here we go." There's a lot of really heavy in
Oh.
the room, a lot of really meaningful stories, and then I look at mine, and mine's not as it's not as heavy, or I could think of it as I've processed through a lot in my life, and so now I choose to write my story, like, how I want to, and so it just comes out a
Mhm.
little lighter. I
Okay.
guess. So,
I think that's awesome.
so
Yeah.
so yeah, so we'll see how it goes. Okay, so one last thing. So I have this thing called the Snowman of Affirmation. So this is my little
Oh,
snowman. He's
nice.
a glass snowman. He's full of like pink and orange and yellow and green papers that have affirmations, and I pick one for all of my guests. So, do you
Yay.
have a color that you'd like, or you want me to just dive in?
Pink, please.
Pink. All right. Okay. Oh, there's one right here.
What's it gonna
Okay,
be?
Holly, your affirmation is why are these always so appropriate? I am making positive changes in the
Yes,
world.
yes. I'll take that.
Ah,
Yes.
boom. I feel like there was a mic drop right there.
I feel like that too.
Wow. Okay, so I'm going to pick myself a green one here. Oh, okay. Also appropriate. I am seen when I show my authentic
Mm.
self.
Yeah. I'll take yours too, actually.
Wow, yeah, go for it. And then I pick one for all of our guests out there who
Oh, I
are watching. And so
love
I go
this.
orange. Oh, I love this one. This is one of my favorites. I deserve what I desire.
Mm,
So we're given our preferences and all of our wants and wishes and even our envy, right? We're given all of that for a reason to go for it, go towards
okay.
ourselves.
Yeah, I love it.
Amen.
Thank you
Yeah.
for that.
All right, Holly. Well, it has been absolutely fabulous having you on Joyfully Ever After today. Thank you so much for
Thank you for
joining
the
me.
honor. Thank you for the invite. Thank you for your time. Love
Mm,
this.
it was great, and, I wish you all the best in your endeavors, and if you're like other guests and I'm still having this show, at some point, you're probably gonna be back on.
Ooh, I would
So,
love that too.
we'll have
I
another
wish you the
con
best on That's What She Said. I cannot
oh.
wait to see the show and hear from you guys, and it's gonna be amazing. So,
Yeah. Fingers crossed, and all of the links will be in the show notes even after the show. I guess I'll put mine in there too after the show.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Hey, keep making positive changes in the world.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
you're
let's
doing
true,
it.
let's true. Let's do that. Let's both keep doing that.
All right.
So, and all of you out there listening, that's for you too. So, all right. With love, light, and laughter, I'm Heidi Esther with the fabulous Holly Melby, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.